everybody. We're going to look at something called perpendicular gradient today. All right. So what that relates to is an equation of a line. Really, this is where it's going to end up talking about the equation of a line. All right. But if I'm trying to think about an equation of a line, well, there are two parts to think about with an equation of a line: is its gradients, how steep it is, and normally where it crosses the y-axis. All right. And that takes the form y equals mx plus c. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about with y equals mx plus c, or the equation of a line, then please look at the previous video first and then kind of come back to us and look at this one again. But when we're talking about perpendicular gradient, what I'm focused on is the value of the gradient of a line, and what I'm after therefore is something which is perpendicular to it, which is at right angle to it. And there's a very, very straightforward concept to that you can learn in relation to this, is that the gradients of two perpendicular lines, when I multiply them together, it gives me -1. All right. So this means the gradients are it is the negative reciprocal of each other. Now that's a bit of a mouthful, but it's quite a straightforward kind of concept to take on board, right? So if you've got something which has a gradient of 5, then the line which is perpendicular, or a perpendicular gradient to it, is going to be the negative reciprocal. So what that means is the sign you've currently got is going to change. All right. So the 5 is going to become a minus, and the reciprocal. And again, there's another lesson on reciprocal, so please take a look at that one if you're not quite sure, is literally the number flipped upside down. All right, so in this case, it's going to be 1/5. All right, so as you look at it, it doesn't really look like that, but this is 5 divided by 1, so it would become 1/5, and that would be the negative reciprocal, would be -1/5. You can see it written there. All right, so what you've done, you've taken the number 5, you've put 1 over it. All right, that's the reciprocal. And you've done the negative reciprocal. So a line which is perpendicular to something with a gradient of 5 has a gradient of -1/5. All right, so I'll have another look at another one. Right, so if you've got something with a gradient of 1/3, well, if it's the negative reciprocal, then it's going to be negative. All right, it's going to change the sign. And when I flip it upside down, it's going to be 3. It's going to be 3/1, isn't it? All right, so perpendicular gradient, that one would be -3. All right. So what about -2/7? All right, well, the sign is going to change, so that means it's not going to be negative, it's going to be positive. And then when I flip the fraction upside down, like I did with the previous one, it's going to be 7/2. All right, so the perpendicular gradient to something with that gradient is 7/2. All right, and that's the concept of perpendicular gradients. It's with the idea of thinking, well, if I times the two together, I'd get -1. All right, so if I was going to times the 5 by the -1/5, what I'd get is -1. If I was going to times the 1/3 by -3, you're going to get -1. If I times -2/7 times 7/2, you're going to get -1. All right, so that's what the line is talking about up there, about the product of the gradients being -1. But of course, for me, from my perspective, what you really need to just remember is if something is perpendicular to it, then the gradient is the negative reciprocal. All right, the negative reciprocal. And as long as you can follow what I've done there, then that should be fine. By all means, it'll probably take a bit of practice in relation to this, but let's have a look at it in context, which is what I've been talking about right from the outset. So find the gradient of the line perpendicular to this one. All right, so this is in relation to y equals mx plus c. All right, so the equation of a line. Again, there's another lesson on the equation of a line, taking that format. So y equals m, where m is the gradient, x plus c. So the gradient of this line, because it's mx plus c, the gradient is 4. All right, so the gradient of the perpendicular line to this one would be -1/4. All right, because it's the negative, change the sign, reciprocal, and it's going to be -1/4. Okay, so there you go. Perpendicular gradient is -1/4. All right, so that is the basis for another lesson we're looking at in terms of the perpendicular gradients. Okay, so it is a negative reciprocal of something. All right, please do visit maths-school.co.uk. The link is at the bottom of the page, and have a bit of a practice on that. My suggestion would be is that once you've done this and you've done the equation of a line, you might want to look at how to work out the equation of a line which is perpendicular to another line. All right, that's the kind of follow-up one. All right, but thanks for listening.